These kinds of visits to a grandparent at home, for example, wouldn't result in an on-the-spot fine?
No, they simply reinforce what the original restriction was, and that always enabled those sorts of care or compassionate visits, and that's always been the case. And if that's the nature of what the visit is, then they just restated their commitment and support to that.
There's been a lot of commentary from people going through that process who've obviously been quite upset. Do you hope that this will bring some relief to families that are going through that very personal struggle at the moment?
Well, I have some familiarity with how they would feel about these sorts of things, and I certainly hope that it would provide them with some of that comfort. And I hope it more broadly is a message, as Greg was saying, to Australians more broadly, that we are on the road back. And these are the steps that we're taking. They're not all great leaps and bounds. This one's a pretty significant one, I've got to say, though. And each step is important, I think, is an encouragement to everyone else for the good work that they've been doing. That's why we're always just thanking Australians every day, and look forward to continuing to thank them. Yep.
Those jobs numbers, extraordinary jobless claim numbers, are you confident that the rate of jobless claims is now slowing? The ABS put out some figures today just showing that the last week was actually the biggest in jobless claims over the last 3 weeks.
We have seen a slowing in the rate of claim, and that's welcome. But the levels of claim are still very high, and they're obviously deeply concerning to me, because every one of those 500,000 Australians who we've processed for job seeker claims is an Australian that's lost their livelihood, and that is deeply distressing to me, terribly distressing. That's why we doubled the job seeker payment effectively through the addition of the COVID supplement, and we still have a lot more claims to get through. Yep.
Obviously, Australians are a bit wary of giving the Commonwealth that kind of data. So what kind of assurances can you give people? We understand it could be released as early as this week, that the Commonwealth won't stuff it up and that you will be able to protect people's privacy.
Well, there'll be the privacy statement, which is being developed up with the Privacy Commissioner. There's also the technical assurances that we've been working very carefully through. We have not been rushing to this solution. We've been listening carefully since we first indicated that we'd be moving to use this app to the various concerns that have been raised and ensure that they're being addressed. And we were able to work through quite a few of those today with the National Cabinet. I want to be clear about a couple of things. The app only collects data and puts it into an encrypted national store, which can only be accessed by the states and territories. The Commonwealth can't access the data. No government agency at the Commonwealth level, not the Tax Office, not Government Services, not Centrelink, not Home Affairs, not the Department of Education, not Childcare. No, the Commonwealth will have no access to that data. It will be locked in a data store, an encrypted data store, that can only be accessed by the state health detectives, if you like, the health tracers, those who are actually making contact with the individual whose phone they would be then seeking for them to unlock the data for it to be released to them so they can begin the contact tracing process. So that's what it's for. It's for a process that is currently being undertaken manually, and this will speed up. Now, I notice in New Zealand they're looking to ask people to keep diaries of these things. We think this is a more comprehensive and a more foolproof system of ensuring that we're picking up as many of those contacts as possible. But it will keep people safe. It'll keep them and their families safe. It will keep others they are coming in contact with more safe, and it'll of course help Australia get back into an economy which will be supporting more and more jobs. John.
Prime Minister, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that China has reached out to about a dozen countries in our region to canvass the possibility of reinitiating very important business travel and diplomatic travel. Has Australia had any reach out from China or been in discussions about that? Would you be open to it?
We've just rolled over again the travel restrictions that we currently have both in place, both outbound and inbound, and we have no plans to change any of those. There are some exemptions that sit around diplomatic travel and a few other very limited cases, and they'll remain.
Prime Minister, when Brett...
Sorry, Sam, you can be next.
Prime Minister, when Brett... sorry, you go.
So you go.
Prime Minister, when Brett Walker led the South Australian Murray-Darling Royal Commission, the Commonwealth went to the High Court to block him compelling evidence from Commonwealth public servants. He's now leading a commission of inquiry into the Ruby Princess, including the decisions and actions of Commonwealth agencies. Will you guarantee that the Commonwealth will provide full cooperation and won't take those efforts to stymie him getting evidence from Commonwealth agencies?
We'll always cooperate with Royal Commissions. Yeah.
Not the only one, so you're ruling out going to the High Court or trying to stop it?
We're always cooperating with the Royal Commissions. Sam?
Just in relation to JobKeeper, are you concerned about these emerging reports of workers being exploited or even sacked when they request JobKeeper? I've had many emails just in the last 24 hours, a woman saying that when she asked to be put on JobKeeper as a casual and she was eligible, her boss said he didn't like the tone, and he said that she was then sacked. Another worker who was told that she would now have to work up to $750 worth of hours to get the money, and she was sent a text message saying, you work when I tell you, and if you don't like that, you're sacked. What protection do these workers have? It seems to be very much at the goodwill of the employer.
Well, you'd be raising two separate cases. I'd be concerned about any behaviour by employers that was coercive, and be very keen for that to be relayed to Fair Work and the Ombudsman and others, and to ensure that we can take action on those cases where they're presented. I think that's important. On the second issue, in terms of if you are doing if you're getting paid $750, then the employer can obviously ask you to do $750 at your rate of pay of work. That's what the Act provides for. That's not an unreasonable request, that someone would work the hours that they're being paid for. That is being paid by the employer, but obviously that is being met by the Commonwealth through the JobKeeper program. But coercive behaviour by employers in this situation is no more tolerable than it is at any other time, and I would expect those sort of complaints to be raised formally, and I'd be keen to know the incidence level of that, and it's something that I'd be happy to raise and have followed through on.
Did you catch Malcolm Turnbull's interview last night, and what do you think about his criticism of the government?
Well, on this issue, I'm just going to remain focused on the actual bigger picture, and that's dealing with the coronavirus response. No, I've answered the question.
Back to the National Cabinet, given we're in a better position than we thought we'd be a month ago, touch wood, and we're thinking about lifting restrictions and getting people back to work in about a month, is there a possibility that the money you've set aside for JobKeeper and JobSeeker, that we may not spend as much as was anticipated in those rescue packages, and it might just take an edge off the cost of this in terms of budgetary terms?
Well, we'll follow the estimates, and if there are estimates variations, then obviously we'll note those at the time. When we costed this measure, it was based on some 6 million Australians being picked up by JobKeeper. But similarly, we need to understand that the automatic stabilisers, as they're known, the supports that already exist within the welfare system that get called on at a time like this, they are also covered by estimates variation. So what does that mean? So you would have directly budgeted for JobKeeper to be at 130 billion over that period of time, and we had some budgeting about the additional cost of the COVID-19 supplement on the JobSeeker arrangements, but there will be many more who will be drawing on the original JobSeeker payment, and that would have just been accepted and absorbed by the budget. So we're still a long way, I think, from knowing the full extent of all of these costs. What we've always been prepared to do, though, is meet them. And the combination of the JobKeeper and the JobSeeker payments means that we have put in a safety net for Australians, both through their employer and directly through the social security system, that Australia has never known before. And this is the platform that enables businesses and individuals to be able to get through better than they otherwise would. And it's a very uniquely Australian program, the combination of these two things together. And it's what's going to help us all get through together. I mean, Virgin is very topical today for very understandable reasons, and we're obviously concerned for those employees in Virgin, but those employees themselves of getting support, some $15 million a fortnight through the JobKeeper program, and then there's the other supports that are being provided, and we look forward through the voluntary administration process, which is the Treasurer and the Deputy Prime Minister made very clear today. That process is a road out. It's a road out and forward into the future. to ensure that the airline can emerge on the other side and we can have the strong commercial viable competition between two carriers in Australia, which the government believes is very important. It's very important in usual times, but it'll be even more important as we emerge from the coronavirus economic crisis, as ensuring that we have those carriers in place. It's important for the jobs, which we've always been very concerned about. It's important that the competition regulator also, particularly as we're coming out and as the administrator works with the airline to ensure that it can go forward in a viable way, that it is also not crushed by any anti-competitive actions that might be put in place by any other player in the market. So we're very keen to see that remain in place. We're very keen to have policies which are supporting jobs, which is going to support the resurgence of the economy. We'd obviously like that to be as quick as possible, but I believe it'll be a challenging road ahead, and I think we all understand that. And I wish the administrator all the best. As you know, Nicholas Moore will be doing that work on behalf of the government to engage with the administrator. I'm encouraged by the fact that there are already 10 parties that have expressed interest in working with the administrator regarding Virgin's future. I think if we'd not taken the actions that we have and not demonstrated the patience that we've had, then all we may have ended up doing is sending $1 billion to foreign shareholders, and that was never part of my plan. Our plan was always about seeing two viable airlines on the other side, two viable airlines that would be there not just 1 year from now, but 5 years and 10 years from now. Thank you all very much. Sorry? The 10 parties have shown interest, was my understanding, and I welcome that announcement.